and it doesn't look like it's down far enough. So what you'll want to do is we'll just go ahead and take this guy right back out, and we'll just tap him. Oh, be careful also with those guys. You want to wear your safety goggles so it doesn't hurt you there. But we're just going to give him another tap here. I'm going to check it again, and you'll kind of wash, rinse, and repeat with this process when you put all your rings back in. So I may be able to work this in. So basically, I won't shoot it the whole time, because if I do, it'll be a 3-hour video. No, it won't take me that long, but it'll be longer than it needs to be. So you'll just kind of do the same thing you've seen me do, and until you get it to fit down in there, and you just want it to spin just a little bit when it fits in there. Oh, it looks like it snapped in, but I'll have to double check on that. So once you get those rings in, we'll go to installing the drive shaft. Alright guys, and one last thing we'll go through here is, I want to show you here real quick too, to make sure that these clips are in. You can take a big flathead screwdriver and just kind of take it and twist, and that'll just help push the edges into the little ridge there. And also, the last thing we want to do here, now that we've got everything put in addition to pre-lubing what I showed you earlier, we're going to go ahead and make sure our U-joint is all lubed up. So you're going to take a grease gun, it may look something like this, and we're going to stick our end. We're going to stick our end on there, and then we're going to grease it up until we see grease come out around that area. So alright, and that looks good right there. I'm seeing grease coming out of the seals too, so that means it's good and lubed up, and that's gonna also make sure all those bearings are lubed up as well. And yeah, it's not a bad idea to do it until you see some kind of come out of all those edges there. Now, the other thing you can expect there about how much play you want is about that right there. So once you get it all put back together, if you're wondering about how much it should move, that's a good guesstimation right there. So back and forth, you got that, and then right like that. So now we're finally ready to put the drive shaft back on the car. Alright, so we are just about ready to go ahead and put our drive shaft back in. And before we do so, you're going to want to make sure your yoke is real clean. Take a clean rag and wipe it off. Also, just make sure there's no nasty stuff inside there on the splines. We don't want any nasty grit getting into your transmission. And just make sure all of your lines line up. Let's see, we got my white outline there, and just come across, and it's going to be there. And as long as, I mean, it's going to be in the exact same position. The only thing you could really mess up is have it 180 degrees the other way. So just as long as your marks are there all lined up, you're good to go. And in this video, I showed you how to change a U-joint. And I just showed you how to change this one right here, because that's all we really needed to change for this particular drive shaft. But there's 3 of them here for this Toyota Tacoma. There's one there, there, and there. You can use the principles that I showed you to change that one right there for the other 2 as well. So with all that said, we're now going to go ahead and put this drive shaft back in and see how she drives afterwards. Alright, this is where the fun really begins, guys. What we got is, we're going to make sure we got our lines lined up, or our white marks. We're going to make sure that lines up with the transmission, and I'm going to take a clean towel and just give this yoke a good wipe off one last time. And basically, on the yoke, we're going to want to line our white piece and our white piece up. And because the splines have to line up with the shaft coming off there. So I'm going to begin like this right here. Alright guys, and I've repositioned the camera in hopes for you to be able to see me a little bit better. And this is just so much fun you would not believe. So what we're going to do is just going to try our best to line them up and stick them on there. That's all we can do. We can pray, and I haven't done that yet, but I will. Oh, right when I talk about praying, it just slips right in there, and we can see here that I'm lined up. So I'm just gonna stick it right in there and set it on down. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and bolt this guy up right in there. And what I did was I made little white marks on the side that things are supposed to go, so I know just to go right there. And there's one bolt laying around, so I'm just gonna reach up here, and if you can't see what I'm doing, it will skip to a place where you can see what I'm doing. I'm just gonna have to move the shaft back there, and now look at that, we're lined up. And once I get this guy started, it's been very useful to use my hands and arms as braces to hold things. Right now my left hand is holding onto the exhaust pipe while my arm is bracing the drive shaft. And that proves to be like a very good thing. Makes life a whole lot easier. So now I'm gonna find my other bolt and we'll get this piece bolted up in there and we'll go ahead and bolt up the back. Okay, and this is my arm position diagram, guys. And the reason I've made this is I'm sure some of you all will really struggle trying to get that drive shaft back in. So this is my attempt to really just kind of help you get the drive shaft back into the transmission. Now, let's say the car is pointing this way. When you're trying to work that drive shaft back into the transmission, if the car is pointing this way, you're going to want your feet sticking out. So your feet are going to be pointing kind of in the position of the driver's side is going to be right here, and the passenger side is going to be right here, and your feet are going to be sticking out that way. Now, once you're laying in the correct position, then we're going to look under here, and this is the same way that if you're positioned that way, what it's going to look like. There's your little face right there, and there's your one eye. It's looking that way. This is the transmission. This is the drive shaft. Okay, this is the end of the drive shaft, this is the middle of the drive shaft, and this is the back end. This is the front end. So, your left arm is going to come behind your head and hold the middle of the drive shaft, while your other arm is going to hold the front end of the drive shaft, and you can lay your elbow on the ground, and it's not like you're really holding anything. You're letting the drive shaft just kind of hang there, set on your hand while your elbow is holding the weight on the ground. So use that hand to work this end into the transmission, which is going to be the toughest part, while you're watching your mark on the transmission, and use your other hand, your left hand, to hold up on that middle piece of the drive shaft, and you'll be able to lift up on it and get it straight so it'll actually go into the transmission. So I hope that helps. Now we'll be moving on. And here's a quick tip about bolting that middle piece of the drive shaft up into that thing with the 2 bolts we've got setting up there. What you'll do is just take your left arm and stick your left arm under the drive shaft, and then stick your hand over the exhaust pipe. Of course, if it's not blazing hot, stick it over the exhaust pipe, and then you can effortlessly just hold the drive shaft while you take your right hand and just work the bolts in there, and it'll be really easy to do because you can move the drive shaft in the position you want with your left hand effortlessly while you effortlessly put the bolt in. That's just a helpful tip there for mounting the drive shaft middle piece up to the place where it needs to be bolted in with those 2 bolts. Alright, and we can see here that the holes are not quite lining up, and I do for sure have the drive shaft lined up right in the transmission. So what must have occurred was when I've jacked up and lowered and jacked up and lowered, as I have just a little bit, is the car may have moved a little bit, and when the wheels move, that rear end there can move a little bit on us. So that's probably what's happened. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and let the jack on down, and I'm on the jack stands, and I'm going to come back here and lift up and then move the wheels just a little bit, and that should fix our problem here. I'll move the wheels in such a way that the holes will line up. Alright, and I've got the wheels off the ground now, and I just kind of put this guy here to make sure he'd stay in place, and I've got my bolt, and as you can see, I'm going to take this wheel, and you'll see I'm moving the thing there. So that's probably what happened overnight, or when I jacked up jacked it up and moved it and stuff, it probably just got out of place there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stick a bolt in there. I'll start a nut on there, and there we go. And I'll have to do this when I have two hands, but that, you get the gist of the idea. So that's how you get it lined up. And that's only if you're 100% sure you're lined up on the transmission with the drive shaft. And I was definitely 100% sure I was lined up. So that's how you line it up. We'll go ahead and put those bolts on, and then I will tell you anything else you need to know. Alright, so just make sure you go ahead and tighten those 4 bolts going into your rear end up with a big ratchet. Like, if you can see the one I got down, well, it's a screwdriver. Let's see. There is these right. Man, I can't seem to bend my wrist that way. There is that big ratchet I got there. I use that because if you remember, those bolts were on there really tight. And then we just want to make sure our drive shaft looks nice and pretty. We can see the marks I put there going down along everything. Make sure everything's tight. I tighten those 2 14mm bolts up right there. And of course, just make sure that one in okay, and make sure it is where it was before it came off. So just make sure all your marks line up. You don't want anything turned around. It'll be like 180 degrees, or you'll have a 45-degree turn. So just make sure you don't have any of that. And that's pretty much it. We just got that in there, and it's now time to go test drive it. And you'll go test drive it and see if that fixed your problem. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Also, if you haven't already, go ahead and make sure you lube up your U-joint, all your new U-joints. You don't want to go through all that hard work and then burn up your new U-joint just because it wasn't lubed up. So make sure you got them all lubed up. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all my new videos, which publish Mondays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will see you then.